Hello, traders. This is Rich from tradesight. Here's a look at the market leading stocks for the coming session. This is going to be for Friday, November 14th. Had kind of a mixed day today where we had some strength and some weakness, depending on what you're looking at. It did circle the wagons here to close the market on a better rather than a weaker note for sure. A lot of that was driven by the merger activity in the energy space. We'll talk about that in just a moment. But the NASDAQ patch here, as you can see, is a little bit biased to the downside, not dramatically so, but there were some weak spots. There was a lot of strength in Apple all day that really helped to buoy the averages, but this advance is starting to get narrow. We were almost minus 1,000 issues today, even though we're up about 12 handles on the day in the NQ futures. So these are the types of days you have to take note of. Moving on to the financials, they were really weak, essentially weak all session. We do have a fair amount of downside CPSs here. MetLife actually has some pretty good volume with it, so this could be a go-to list for tomorrow if we do take a negative bias tomorrow. Here's a look at the energy patch. You see the volume bumps here. There was some M&A activity. So Valero, Schlumberger, Rig, all trading big volume. Not a lot of signals here, but certainly a lot of movement. And these stocks were really on their heels. You got a little lift here at the end of the day, even as crude closed below $75 for the first time on this move. Market generals kind of paired off here between buys and sells. We had a volume bump in Walmart following its earnings and guidance. That's got an upside signal for tomorrow. We also had a volume bump in Dow, DOW. Moving on to the housing names, not a lot of action here. DHI was fairly strong, and Lowe's has a downside RPS, but doesn't have that volume bump that we'd like to see with that. UPS did have some pretty good volume today. A lot of these transportation names are pretty extended, so keep an eye on them. And finally, the commodity names, a little bit to the sell side here, as you can see. Oil was obviously very weak today, so some of the stocks that are associated with that we'll see that. In gold was essentially meandering today, even though they tried to break it. They walked it back up here a little bit to sell it relatively even. ABX was weak. All the precious metal things were the weakest on the list here. I do have a contra candle to the downside on U.S. steel. That was fairly weak, so that could be interesting for tomorrow, so keep an eye on that. All right, folks, as always, thanks for listening. This has been Rich for tradesight.